I think the environment is that family was first. It was really important, and comes family is food. So everything that we did had a food component. So whenever we were together, and we did get together a lot, the restaurants always helped, always having food available and everything. But even when we were getting together later, we would rent places to actually bring potlucks. And we would bring potlucks. We had family reunions. We started those in the 1970s, and food was always central. And again, it was not only cultural, but it was important to share some of the recipes. And we tried to, continue with some of the tradition of food.
And I play mahjong with Linda and our other cousin Val and a couple of other cousins. At least once a month we play mahjong on a Saturday. The text message is always 5 days before: who's bringing lunch, who's bringing breakfast, who's bringing dessert, and if there's a special snack, to who's bringing the special snack. So in every family meeting we do to this day, for however many decades we've been in this country, everything centers around food. It is primary to what we do. It has to be included. Try this one. This one's on.
Well, I'm here really representing the Lotus Room for my cousin, Robert, who's under, not feeling too well. So I'm here with my two cousins, Pat and Lisa.
Is that the one that is the Chinese American police officer? Well, hi, Patty. This is not gonna go well, you know.
This is only the first question.
We all grew up in the Lotus Room because it opened in 1947. So there was always food around anytime we wanted. We were playing in banquet rooms. Lisa would be roller skating or jumping down the stairs. I mean, my aunt just loved all of us. And she let us do almost anything we really wanted without being really severely disciplined. But I think we took it for granted that our parents, my father was a cook there, our parents was always going to be there. We never learned how to cook because we figured that we didn't need to cook.
I'm Linda Jew. My aunt and uncle opened a new China cafe on Colfax and Clarkson. And he opened it soon after World War II, where there was still a lot of anti-Asian sentiment because of the war and because of the Chinese Exclusion Act. And he hoped by opening the restaurant, the new China, it would bring harmony and peace, bring that sentiment back into the community. And it started out as a little tiny hole in the wall and eventually grew into a big restaurant where he had big parties, Chinese New Year's parties, and that was how we celebrated, was by having big banquets and eating food. We would eat there. I would work there when I could, even as a child. Once a week we would eat at the new China and order whatever we wanted. And let's see, I wanted to say, Connor, you don't know, was the great grandson of Lily Look, who was the first Chinese child born in Colorado. And she married Lily Look was the original, the oldest daughter, first Chinese child born to Chin Lin Su. So the Look family and the Chin family are related.
We go way back.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So as we see, food is very central to all these families and communities. So describe what were meal times like.
When we were growing up, we would always be at one of the houses. So again, our family, our house was at 2141 Vine. And it had a wonderful wraparound, concrete wraparound porch. And we would cram tables. And we'd eat around all the tables, and it had a tiny kitchen, but it didn't matter. We were all gonna eat together, and that was how we shared all the meals. And that was important, is that you always knew that you could go to Popo's house and you could get an almond cookie. And that was really important, but eating was very, very important for our family.
I agree to all that and more, and of course we are cousins, so we had a similar experience. Yes, it's central, it's a shared activity, it brings together the generations. So long time ago, when my grandparents were still alive, not that long ago, but Sundays, we would eat Sunday dinner, Sunday lunch with grandparents, my parents' generation, and then me and my first cousin. So this is time we can't ever get back, and I'm so glad we did it, because it was a time, shared activity, multiple generations, and that was the important time for meal times. That was fun. We can't ever do it again. You know, my grandparents are passed away, but this is the important thing for meal times for us. It's what I remember the most about being young, is the shared time with family.
Okay, the Lotus Room was open 6 days a week, with Tuesdays being off. So those 6 days, we were always eating when it, well, right after lunchtime was over. We would sit and eat whatever was on the lunch menu. And then in the evening, after the dinner rush was over, my father and my Uncle Frank would make a meal for the whole staff, cooks and wait staff all together. We would all sit together and eat. On Tuesday, on the day off, we would, a lot of the times, we would go on picnics at City Park, just to be together, to chill or whatever. My grandmother's favorite place was the Apple Shandy on Colfax. We would go there because she loved the baked apples. Or we would go to Victoria Station or Cherry Creek Inn. We were a family that was really close-knit. We did everything together. My mother and her 3 other sisters saw each other every day, even on Tuesdays. So.
My grandmother was Daisy Chin. She was the wife of Willie Chin, who was mayor of Denver's Chinatown. When he passed away, and my 2 uncles built her 2 sons, built a house in Park Hill, and I remember she would cook dinner for 17 people during the summers when my aunt and cousins came. Every night she would cook for 17 people. And other than summertime, she would cook for 9 people. And she had a day off on Sundays when we would go to China. But she would cook. My grandmother was held on Angel Island, which was the western equivalent of Ellis Island. They held her there for a year, and she never forgave them for it. She was very angry, but she eventually grew to love American culture so much that her favorite singers were Tex Ritter and Gene Autry. And she would make my sister and I sit there and watch them YOLO every week. And she would cook Chinese food. She cooked everything from pickled pig's feet to congee to wooden ear soup to spaghetti and Chinese chicken curry, and do that every night for 9 people. I remember it because I would sit in the kitchen and watch her cook, and I wish I was smart enough to write down some of these recipes, because I remember they were like comfort food. And the one comfort food I remember was rice after after they took out the rice that it was cooked. What was left over in the pot, they would burn it and make it crispy rice, and then pour hot water in it. My grandfather hated it because he called it peasant food. So, but for me it was comfort food, and my cousin loved it and called it Chinese soul food, which it was, because that's what we grew up with. I had a sister that was born in China, and she said all they would eat was congee every day, because they couldn't afford protein or anything to add to it. It was just rice and veggies. And when she came over to America, she hated it. And to this day, she's 80 years old now, she won't eat congee. But the thing I remember most is what my grandmother cooked, and of course the food at the New China. He would bring in Chinese chefs from Hong Kong who were excellent chefs, and they would work there and we would have banquets every year at Chinese New Year's, where they had all the politicians, the governors, the mayors, police chiefs, fire chief, judges, and they would celebrate for over a month. Every week there was a Chinese New Year party, and they'd have food that was supposed to be for royalty, things like abalone and bird's nest soup and shark fin soup. But when we ate at home with my grandmother, she didn't cook all the expensive stuff. It was like spaghetti and pickled pig soup. So that's all I remember.
So meal times are very special for everybody here and for all of us. Was there any specific dishes that stood out to you? Could be good or bad? Could be anything?
The congee that my great-grandmother used to make, so she died when I was about 6, but I remember it wasn't that good. So similar to your sister who was born in China, I do remember that one. I loved my great-grandmother, I still remember her, but for better or for worse, I do remember her congee. So that being said, if you go to dim sum around town now, we have excellent congee in Denver. It's really tasty. So there are times I will eat it, but it may be second choice, yes.
I think chashu baos, I think our dumplings, and those recipes have gone down in generations. And of course the roasted duck, but roasted duck takes a lot. It's hard to prepare, and I don't think any of us have the patience to go in and do all the steps to make a good roasted duck. But I remember liking that. My dad was a great cook, and one of the things that he did was actually cook for the family. So again, they had a month-old party, and again, that's when the baby is born, and they wait for a month, and then they do a celebration. And then the Chinese New Year and weddings, he would cook for the family and prepare the food. And that was one thing, that was his contribution, I think, to the family, and that was important to him as a chef.
And Linda's dad made really good Chinese food, really good mac and cheese as well. So again, we're in the United States, blending of cultures. He was an excellent cook in all cuisines, yes.
Was there any specific dishes that you remember from your childhood, or?
From childhood, mostly I remember my grandmother's spaghetti. That was what I loved the best. But let's see, in Chinese restaurants, I would order chow fun, which was flat Chinese rice noodles with beef or pork or shrimp, and then orange beef, which was hard to make, but I loved it. And my grandmother did cook that at home. Let's see, and of course the burned rice. And I still eat that to this day. I make it, not just white rice, by itself. I make it specifically for the burned rice. But
I think that, like, we were always at the restaurant, so I never really complained about any of the food, or, because we could eat anything we wanted. All I had to do was say, "Dad." But he loved to make me beef rice, which was beef with brown gravy over white rice. It was really simple, but it was delicious. And I think I got my son and my daughter into making, or learning how to make that. My one regret was that, like I said before, I took it for granted that my father was always going to be there. So I never really watched that, to see what the ingredients were. I really want it now by taste, hoping that I can make beef rice like he did.
It just reminds me just how much, thinking back to like my parents cooking, like even the simplest dishes could like have such a profound memories and impacts on our lives. Since all of us, actually not me, I'm not a native, I'm an imposter, but since everyone here lived in Colorado, how did living in Colorado affect your relationship with Chinese food or food in general?
Well, we're going to ask a question about this later, but I think this is a good time for me to bring up perspective. So I'm a millennial. I was born in the 90s. But growing up, and this is not just me, this is everyone in this room who's been in Colorado amount of time, we didn't have a lot in the 90s or even the 2000s in terms of Asian food. So we had the staples, Kingsland on, Alameda, that's closed, but we've always had Empress. We've always had these mainstays, Federal and Alameda. But besides that, in the suburbs where I'm from in Centennial, we didn't have a ton. We had 2 boba places growing up, Cup of Joy, there was one in Brookfield, one in Colorado, and that was it. So every Friday night high school, all the Asians, 2 Cup of Joys around town, that's it. Now, they're everywhere, the boba shops. Everywhere you go, there's milk tea options. Everywhere you go, there's noodle options, dim sum options. The wonderful dinners tonight, they're just up the road on 13th, what are they on? They're really close up the road here. So everywhere you go in all of Denver Metro, there's food options. So we've come a long way from the time I was born to even now. So growing up, it's not cool to eat Asian food. Everyone probably has the same stories I'm about to tell, but you bring your noodles to lunch at elementary school, kids are mean, "Oh, what is that, worms? What do you got there?" And for me, it's just food. But the attitudes have really changed, again, even in the time I've been alive, we now want to eat noodles for fun. If you go out with your friends, you want to get Asian food. You want to eat at Chopsticks Fusion. You want to get dim sum. And I remember I noticed when things changed when I was at Kingsland, that place that closed. But I walked in one day, I went to college and came back, and I went, there's a lot of different kinds of people in here. All colors, all ages. Everyone was at Kingsland eating dim sum. Table next to us, there's a family. This kid, maybe 12 years old, he goes, "Mom, can we get hagao and simai?" And then the mom goes, "I don't know what that is, but sure." And that's when it became, things changed. It became fun, it became cool. So growing up, it's just one of the things about being a minority. Your food is just not cool. No one really, what is that? I'd rather have a hamburger. But things have really changed in Colorado, across the entire country in the past decades. It's fun, it's cool, it's an enjoyable experience to eat Asian food. So we've kind of made it to a point where it's part of the culture, even in Denver, for as small as the Chinese American community is, and the Asian American community, the food now I think is a staple. It's here and it's going to stay here, and we, especially in this room, but just Coloradans in general, I think enjoy Asian food. It's a great thing to see.
I agree. I think that is important. For us, I think it was growing up that we were eating in the restaurants. So again, our family was the one that was cooking the food. And it is exciting to see that there's restaurants that are opening and you can get a variety of food anywhere. It's an exciting time.
Since we're on the topic of Chinese restaurants, what is your go-to order when you go to a Chinese restaurant now?
Linda, what's yours?
Mine is, of course, the chow fun. I love noodles. I guess that's why I love spaghetti so much. But I order chow fun, which is a flat rice noodle with beef and pork or shrimp. And then, of course, the orange beef.
I also like to eat beef chow fun. I order mine from the Empress, but I get mine with beef chow fun with black bean sauce, which is, they'll give you the chow fun separately, and they'll give you the beef, green pepper, onions, black bean sauce. It's in a gravy. And they give you a lot of gravy to cover beef chow fun. But you get that at the Empress, or we've been trying to get it at the Hong Kong station to go.
The wait at Hong Kong station, I live right next to it, is very long, so good on you for waiting for it. But a three-peat here, I love beef chow fun. It's delicious. Yes.
I like dim sum. So I think that just going to any of the places, only because it takes a lot of time to make that, and you won't do it, so that's where you go.
Are there any chefs or individuals that you guys look towards for in your own cooking or any kind of food? Doesn't have to be Chinese, but it could be general.
My mother gave me a Chinese cookbook by Johnny Kahn from San Francisco. And so when I've forgotten how to make some of that Chinese food, I look in Johnny Kahn's book.
I also have a lot of cookbooks, but I don't like to follow directions. So I look at the ingredients and I do it myself, hoping that it'll come out just as well.
I had Chipotle for lunch, and my stove has about this much dust on it, so I'm terrible at cooking. But ask me the question in 5 years, maybe I'll have an answer. But I have nothing to say for that.
Again, we tried to collect some of the recipes from our families, and we make chashu, and we use my father's recipe. So again, we've tried to maintain some of that. We're trying to pass that on, but I don't see a lot of enthusiasm, at least with my son.
It skips a generation.
Yes, it skips a generation. So Conrad will be the cook.
We'll see.
So we've talked a lot about how Chinatown was before, but what do you all want to see in a future Denver Chinatown?
What we're hoping for, and again, I think that we still try to go and get the interest and the funding, but it's very, very hard right now. But we would at least like to have Asian American Pacific Islander Museum or community center where we can all go and meet. And again, this is a temporary exhibit that's here, so we would like to have something permanent where we can actually clean out all of our basements because Chinese are hoarders. And we'd like to then put all the stuff in that all of you can see.
For me, there's the Chinatown that we're talking about that's under development, the idea and the physical place. But for me, it's also an idea. It's the same thing that we've been talking about. It's a continuation of food in Denver Metro. It's places, it doesn't matter where, but just where people like to go, like to eat, and like to meet. So for me, that would be the same. It'd just be fun to continue on with that.
Okay, I would like to see a place that respectfully honors the past, recognizes the wrongs, yet embodies a shared vision of a successful shared future.
I like the way Chinese food has evolved. It started out as most people knowing Chinese food as chop suey. And people didn't know, but Chinese called it odds and ends. And it was made out of meat, eggs, and veggies. But that was how it started, how Chinese food started. They called it chop suey. And now it's evolved where people are finding out there are 7 to 8 different styles or different provinces of Chinese food. And it's hot, cold, spicy, a different style of steaming and stir fry. And that wasn't well known back in the time when Chinese restaurants first started. So now there are so many different styles coming on. I haven't even heard of some of them. So it's headed in the right direction, and I like it, and that's what my family was hoping for, that people would get to know Chinese culture through the Chinese food.
So in this future Chinatown, I have a fun question. If you guys had unlimited budget and you were given an opportunity to run your own restaurant, what would it be?
When I was 7, the Lotus Room opened. I don't think I would ever want to open a Chinese restaurant because the hours are too long.
For me, if I had a big budget, we could hire a bunch of staff, it would be make your own stir fry. So you guys remember, and I think one of the locations closed, but Mongolian. Yes. So that concept, but not only do you pick your own ingredients, but you stir fry it yourself if there's someone to help you. So you can kind of learn to cook, because it's something I need to learn still.
I don't know if I would open a Chinese restaurant, having worked in it too. I know it's long hours, hard work. The new China opened from 11 in the morning for lunch hour and stayed open till 3 in the morning. And it was hard work. It was hard keeping help. They were always trying to find new chefs, new cooks, new waiters, waitresses, and dishwashers. And you would end up doing whoever didn't show up for that day. And long hours, hard work. I wouldn't open a Chinese restaurant.
I just want to say, since Linda said it was hard to find help, I have to honestly say that the Lotus Room, whoever my Aunt Esther hired, 85% of the staff and waitresses and waiters have stayed until the very end.
Linda Long, do you have any ideas for your restaurant?
Well, with an unlimited budget, I would hire everybody to do everything, and I would just manage and be the hostess and welcome people.
That's still hard work.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember my uncle at New China would go back to Hong Kong and hire Chinese chefs and bring them back to work in his restaurant. And one of them opened his own restaurant called Ming's Dynasty. I don't know if any of you have heard of that. He's closed now, but he came from Hong Kong and worked at New China for many years until he opened his own restaurant. And he always told me when New China closed, when we started going to his restaurant, he said he wished he had become a professional of some kind, like our family had become, because it was such hard work. And I said, well, the American dream was to have your own business and have a successful business. And he did. It was very successful. He retired young, put his 2 children through college and retired. But when I told him that the American dream was to have your own business, which is what he had, and he was very successful, and he didn't feel so bad, but he regretted it because they were such long, hard hours. And he didn't stay open until 3 in the morning, but he stayed open until about 11 at night.
So, if we want to open it up to the floor for any questions from the audience, I think I'll have this microphone.
Yes, if you have a question, please just raise your hand and I'll come bring the mic to you.
When do we get the Denver Chinatown cookbook? If Junior League can do it, so can you.
Lisa?
Working on it.
So again, we're trying to, we've been talking and we are trying to go in and compile. But again, we want to make it more like a storybook. So it's going to have stories and it's going to have the recipe that relates to that story. Lisa?
That's what you said, my daughter
Yes.
talking.
Yep.
So many years ago, were there special places where restaurants and people in homes could buy the ingredients for the recipes? Any special places?
A lot of food was brought back from China. They had to go to California and was shipped over from Hong Kong. And that was where my grandfather, as a merchant in Denver's Chinatown, would go back to California and bring back all of it. They were usually dried things, like dried and fermented and salted, and brought it back from China, like salted fish or 1,000-year-old egg. Lots of dried veggies and fruits. They were mostly preserved things that you couldn't get here.
Well, we had Seattle Fish Market and the Pacific Mercantile. So again, we had places that were staples where they could go and get certain food.
You mentioned chop suey. Do you remember, like, how has Chinese food changed over the last century plus? Because I know, has it taken on an American flavor, or is it still true to the tradition?
Chop suey was he originally made to satisfy American taste, so it was more sweet at the time. And Chinese food originally was more savory, and but they adapted to make more people accustomed to Chinese food by adding a little sweetness to it. And so now you see it's evolved to all different styles of Chinese food, from just chop suey. Chop suey is just stir-fried meat, eggs, and veggies. And now you don't have to stir fry, you can steam it or bake it or whatever.
And I think food has gotten healthier.
Yeah.
So again, there was a lot of, I would say, the gravies that was put on some of the Chinese food in the past. And I think now people demand a lot more fresh. And I think it's better.
And a lot of that we can thank to the new immigrants that are coming into the United States now, because our families have been here for a long time. And the restaurants you see, the contemporary ones around town, Sichuan food, the spicy food, northern food, Western food, those are more recent immigrants that are bringing those flavors from China now. So we have, the old generations to thank for what they did, the troubles they went through, and we also can thank new generations for bringing in the flavors directly from the source today with the ingredients that they can ship immediately.
The original Chinese were from Canton, and so it was Southern Chinese, so it was Cantonese food. And that was what Chinese food started as Cantonese style.
I know my father and Uncle Frank came from Canton. And Cantonese food is, they don't use a lot of seasoning or spice. They want the flavor the natural flavor of the vegetables or the meat to come out by, so that you would enjoy it more.
You touched on the American dream of having your own business, but that subsequent generations have done other things. Always immigrant stories are rise up. Tell us about your families and what has become of them if they're not all in the restaurant business.
I think our family has become so diverse. Again, I think from learning from our parents, again, our parents worked very, very hard so we could become better. And I think that was one of the things, is that we would rise above that. And the service industry is a very tough market. And our parents were proud to work and to make it better. So again, I think from our large family, we can see a diverse amount of occupations that they have taken over now. So again, I'm sitting next to a United pilot. He wouldn't work in the restaurant. He would eat in a restaurant, but he wouldn't work in a restaurant.
I do like eating at restaurants, yes.
My family, we all knew how hard it was to work in a Chinese restaurant, so they wanted us to move on, even though some of them would have liked to have somebody take over the restaurants. Nobody did. And they told us we could go to school and study whatever you wanted as long as it was in medicine. So most of us did, my cousins. And we obeyed, we were good Chinese children. Pharmacy, doctors, nurses, med techs, emergency techs. I was a dental hygienist. My sister was a nurse. And my cousin, who was the only son of Herbert Wong's New China, stayed as far away from the restaurant as he could and became a medical doctor and moved away to Oregon.
She was our hygienist. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Are there any Chinese holidays or celebrations you remember experiencing when you were a child or still celebrate?
Chinese New Year.
Chinese New
Yeah.
Year's.
Always.
Yeah, the Lotus Room had a great big Chinese New Year's every year. They would invite dignitaries from the state and the city. Anybody, well, newspaper staff, whatever. And every year, my father and my uncle and Lisa's father, we all worked at the Lotus, well, they all worked at the Lotus Room as chefs. They would put on this great big feast, at least 10 courses. And there would be about, what did you say, about 200 people there?
At least, yeah.
And it was just one great big celebration. I think it was just a time for everybody to get together, to relax, to talk, to share stories or whatever.
I think it's still important. So again, we still get together for Chinese New Year, all the families.
Thank you so much for all your perspectives. There was a question about ingredients. I was just wondering, because when we first came to the US, I remember my mom was growing bean sprouts underneath the kitchen cabinet because it had to be in the dark for it to grow, and we couldn't buy it in grocery stores. You can get that everywhere now. And are there other ingredients that you had to grow or substitute? I remember my mom complaining about the rice because it's not right, you know, the long grain rice versus the other rice that we have, or things like that. Were there any little quirks like that that you remember?
I remember our family, so again, it was our great grandmother, and she lived at 2141 Vine, and she would actually grow bitter melon in the back, and then she had the Chinese snow peas. So all of us knew that we could go over there and get fresh vegetables from our grandmother that you couldn't get in the grocery stores. And again, this was in the 50s.
I'm not sure how my grandmother made pickled pig's feet, where she got it from, but she did. And it sounds horrible, but it was actually pretty good. We had duck's feet, chicken feet, made with black bean sauce. And a lot of the black beans, you had to buy the beans, fermented beans, and grind it up yourself. And now you can buy it in a jar. But a lot of it came from California when they brought it over from China. See, and the rice had to be Texas long grain. That's what I remember, for Chinese food anyway.
Any other questions?
Yeah. I probably can just ask you.
Linda, you mentioned about a party at a month old for a baby.
Yes.
Could you give us a little bit more information about that? And I have some other friends that I've heard from them of what they did for their child. But was this the first time extended family saw the baby, or the baby sort of kept away for a while? How did that work?
They were kept away for a while. So again, after the baby was born, again, they were kind of in seclusion. And then for the celebration, and again, there was a high mortality rate of infants. And so they would wait for a month old, and then you would celebrate. And we would dye red eggs, and you would roll the red eggs on over their heads so they would be smart and also beautiful. And look at us. Huh? It worked.
Any other questions?
I remember my grandmother would make Chinese wooden ear soup, which was a fungus that looked like a wooden ear. And it was made with chicken soup. It was like Chinese or Jewish chicken soup, only with wooden ears, the fungus. And they called it New Mother's soup. And it was black mushrooms with the wooden ears and chicken boiled in soup and lots of bourbon.
All right, can we give our panelists a round of applause?